Hello everyone, my name is Christian Eschbach, and welcome to another one of my album reviews. Alright everyone, it is Pantera time. So we are going to talk Far Beyond Driven. As you can see, I actually bought this used for $8. I'm going to start this right now. If you can find this used for $8, pick it up for $8, okay? No ifs, ands, or buts. Now, you're probably asking, why did I buy this used for $8 when it came out during my heyday of buying CDs? Well, that's because all my buddies bought the CD, so I didn't need to buy it back then. I could just listen to theirs. And I'm going to be honest right here at the beginning as well. As much as I say, if you can find it for $8, pick it up for $8. Go pick up Cowboys from Hell or Vulgar Display of Power first. If you don't have those before you pick up this one, go pick those two up first. I just went through and listened to this album for the first time in forever. Alright, so I could do this review. I haven't listened to it honestly in its entirety from beginning to end since probably 1994 or 95. The album came out in 94, so I want to say somewhere in 94 or 95, it was the very first, over and over and over and over and over again, my buddies killed the hell out of this album. That being said, even now going back and re-listening to it, the other two albums are a lot more original than this one is, I think. There are some great songs on this one, and I'm going to get into that. But I think the other two albums were more original, and this one really just did as well as it did building off the momentum of the previous two albums. Because even after this album came out, I used to do, I went to Riverside High School, and my grade 11 year, I was one of the DJs that used to run the music in our cafeteria at lunchtime. And this album wasn't the one that was requested usually. It was usually songs off of either Cowboys or off of Vulgar. And I had Cowboys. I owned Cowboys right from, way back then. So I would usually have Cowboys on me for someone, someone would want something off of there. Vulgar or something, would be the one that someone would bring up. I never had requests for anything off of Far Beyond Driven. But that doesn't mean that it's a bad album. It's just an album that I think it overcapitalized on momentum that was already built up. Much like the Black Album was Metallica's biggest album. But was the Black Album really their best album? If you ask most Metallica fans, they'll say no. Most Metallica fans will say that their best album was Master of Puppets. But the momentum was there afterwards, and it kept going and made the Black Album as huge as it was. It happens with a multitude of artists. That's how momentum's supposed to work. I even mentioned this when I talked about Iron Butterfly as well. Iron Butterfly, their biggest album, chart-wise, was the album after their biggest album. The one that everybody knew. So Ball was their highest charting album, but it came after In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, which is the only album that anybody knows to this day. So, now that I've gone into all of that, let me talk about the songs on this album. The album opens up with Strength Beyond Strength. It starts the album either perfectly or horribly, depending on your point of view. Do you like being thrown directly into a mosh pit? I mean, a big savage mosh pit where right away you just push into it and that's it, you're gone? If you're into that, Strength Beyond Strength, totally your song. If you like to warm up before you get into the mosh pit, not the greatest way to start this album. I'm the type that likes to warm up before I jump into the mosh pit. To be fair, I'm getting too old for the fucking mosh pit. Okay. After that, we get into Becoming. I love Becoming, and in my opinion, this should have been the one that opened the album. It gets you warmed up perfectly before, and then you get to enjoy the crazy 90s metal, it warms you up and then drops you into it, which is perfect. I actually enjoy Becoming a lot more now than I did when this album first came out, actually. I really kind of dig into this song now. Then we get into 5 Minutes Alone. Dude, if you don't already know this song, you need to stop this video right now, open up another tab, and search for the song, okay? This is metal, alright? 5 Minutes Alone, this is mandatory metal that every metal listener should know, and if you don't know this song, you don't know metal, okay? You don't have to love this song, but you must respect it. 5 Minutes Alone! Alright. Then you get into I'm Broken. Oh. It comes on with a melancholy rage that just perfectly captures Phil Ensemble's personality at this time, man. Basically, the last three songs, Becoming, 5 Minutes Alone, and I'm Broken, are the entire reason this album is as huge as it is holds up as well as it does. The downside is, after I'm Broken, kind of just the rest of the album is just kind of like the rest of the album. Basically, those three songs right there, Becoming, 5 Minutes Alone, and I'm Broken, are the powerhouse of Pantera when it comes to their songs, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, Cowboys from Hell is my favorite song, but you know, those three, man, you play those three in order on that album, and you let loose like you would, especially when we were teenagers, man. By the time we were done with, you know, I'm Broken, we were pretty wiped and needed a break, and that's when you hit the next track and you go through the rest of the album. All right, so next up we got Good Friends in a Bottle, and wait, what is that I hear? A bass? One of my biggest rants about metal is, especially 80s, in through the mid-90s metal, the bass just most of the time replicates either the rhythm guitar line or it replaces the guitar line. You know, like they basically kill the lows and they boost the mids and highs on it. You know, you still get a little bit of a low sound in there because it's the bass, right? But that's not what the bass is doing. It's doing the rhythm. Like, okay, so Rex always does the rhythm, okay? I mean, that is the thing. You can always hear the bass as the low end under the guitar. But that's what it is. It's usually Rex is the low end under the guitar, not the actual rhythm doing the rhythm. You know, like, obviously during solos and stuff like that where he goes off. But it definitely using a Black Sabbath kind of mentality. Because that is where it started, you know. Usually that's where Geezer played. Geezer played almost in the, you know, just under, so you'd hear the low end, but basically it was the same thing as what Iommi played most of the time, stuff like that. And it really took until the later half of the 90s before bass started really kind of doing what bass was supposed to do again, especially in metal. Even now, it's still kind of hit and miss with that with metal. But it's really cool to hear the bass line going in here. I really dig it, and it gave me an ability to have this little bit of a rant. Hardline, Sunken Cheeks. There will be fans of this song, without a doubt. I'm not one of them. It's like on this song, they were going for something kind of like War Pigs or Black Sabbath. I'm going to mention Black Sabbath a lot throughout this because Black Sabbath were huge influences on Pantera. It's going to come up at the very end. And I'm really cool with that, but the problem is they did it using pretty standard Pantera riffs. Like, it's kind of like they just went, all right, well, I want something that kind of sounds like War Pigs. All right, cool. Well, we're going to use our riffs. Okay, cool. So, you know, do this, do that, do this. It's kind of cookie cutter-ish, I felt like, sort of. Good, but kind of cookie cutter-ish. Like I said, they're going to be fans of that song. Slaughtered, to me this is nothing special. Growl, growl, riff, riff, scream, scream, riff, riff. Honestly, one of the songs that kind of makes me not into Pantera. 25 Years. Really cool groove at the start of the song. About 30 seconds in, it gets a little more playful and experimental for Pantera. And I was kind of like, alright, that's kind of cool. I'm all into that. And then at about a minute 10, it locks into more of the regular riffage. About 15 seconds after that, I get really annoyed with how choppy the riffs start getting. It kind of ruins the song when it starts doing this kind of like choppy thing going on in there. I'm not a fan of it at all. Phil's vocal delivery kind of is like, yeah, on this one as well. And by the end of the song, I really feel like it's just, they had a bunch of riffs left over, and they slapped them all together instead of trying to make an actual cohesive song. Shredding Skin. I don't mind this one. But I think they should have leaned a little more into the mellow side of the song and pulled back a little bit on the heavy, screamy stuff. Just a little bit. Gone a little more... I hate to use another one of their songs, but gone maybe a little bit more towards Cemetery Gates kind of feel that way. Another one that I'm kind of thinking of, just because I was recently listening to it, is also a Tout Le Monde from Megadeth. Would have been, you know, kind of how I'm thinking they should have leaned a little bit more on this song. You know, a little bit more mellow with a nice build-up, as opposed to... You know, it just... Use My Third Arm. First off, I love the title. That's great. There's just a good joke there, right there, the whole way around. And I love they put a good joke in there. Okay, so that's not nice. However, I will say that Death Clock. Oh yeah, Death Clock definitely borrowed from this one. And I mean, they totally borrowed from this one. And the cool part about this song, one of the best parts about this song, is if you are a windmill headbanger, and you know what I mean by saying a windmill headbanger. If you are a windmill headbanger, man, this one, there are very few songs in this world that are dedicated to a style of headbanging. This one is 100% definitely dedicated to windmill headbanging. That goes into Throes of Rejection, has a great intro, then it gets pretty basic pretty fast for Pantera, nothing special. Now, I did mention that whole Black Sabbath thing, and I'd come at the end, you can definitely tell they were influenced by Black Sabbath. Well, Planet Caravan, off of the Paranoid album. I don't think it should be the closer for this album, but this album had no distinct closer, so they did what they did. I love this song. I love the original from Black Sabbath. I love this cover. I had a lot more respect for Pantera after this song got released. But I want to state, I don't think it was a closer. I think it got put on at the very end because there was no true definitive closer. And a lot of times, if you put a song at the very end of the album, it tends to become a bigger song on the album, especially in metal albums. Not always, but a lot of times. And yeah, this version was actually pretty huge for Pantera. It got a lot of radio play, at least in Detroit it got a lot of radio play, man, because this song was a big one. Like, I think it got more radio play from the Pantera version than it did in the original Black Sabbath version in all my years listening to the radio in Detroit. Anyways, folks, those are my thoughts, my views, my opinions. This is not the Pantera album I would recommend, but if you can find it used for $8, go pick it up used for $8. Absolutely. Not going to go wrong. This is just my personal preference and taste on this album that kind of, you know, play it down a little bit, not into it as much. If you are a true metalhead, like if you are into the big four thrash, you like, especially the Anthrax and Slayer part of the big four, you know, Megadeth and Metallica, not so much, because they're a little bit different than this. They don't, when it comes to the big four, I know both Megadeth and Metallica are thrash, especially Metallica in the early days, not so much a little bit, well, not so much through the mid-section and then back into the thrash in the later years. But those two are a little bit different than Slayer and Anthrax, and I'd put this more towards the Slayer and Anthrax side than I would towards the Metallica and Megadeth side. Part of that is the vocal deliveries, definitely. Anyways, folks, I'm going to start rambling if I don't stop there. Let me know what you think. That's what the comment section is for. When you're on your way down there, you'll see a link to Patreon. Please feel free to click on that. Appreciate it. It helps me out. It helps everybody out. Because I do stuff on Patreon for my viewers. Both stuff for my subscribers on Patreon and just because you click to go over to Patreon. So, do that. Like button, subscribe button, bell for notifications, join button, follow button if you're on Rumble, Locals, whatever. Peace. Love. Take care.